listening to KSQD Santa Cruz, K-Squid 90.7 FM, streaming live at ksqd.org. I am Catherine Bell, and welcome to the Dream Journal, a weekly show where we explore the healing powers of your nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with you. In the words of Carl Jung, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Today's music is called Extra Nominal. Death and the spaces between. Dreaming can help us prepare for and recover from loss. But how do we continue to engage with spirit during our waking lives? Today we have a conversation about lucid living with Sahlah Dubel. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. The Dream Journal is also a podcast, so you can look for that in all podcast platforms and also on the KSQD website at ksqd.org/the-dream-journal. So look for the Dream Journal wherever you play it, and review it, subscribe, but most importantly, tell your friends. That's really how people find out about the show, and it gives you an opportunity to talk about your dreams. Maybe they don't even know you're interested in your dreams. You can say, hey, this podcast I've been listening to. So, my personal dream work, I had one of those dreams that I hear all the time, from other folks, and I had not had one of these for myself yet. I am in a dance class, and I'm really loving it, and it's super fun. And the teacher comes over and gets real flirty with me, and he's very attractive, and I'm like, ooh, I'm all flirtatious. I feel giggly and schoolgirlish, and then I'm like, oh, I'm married. Wait, I can't be here. I can't be with you. I'm married. And I turn away, and then I start, worrying about my relationship, and just, there's things that happen, and I have this worry sometimes. And so the question for me is, can I bring that worry to the dance teacher? That kind of flirtatious, girly energy. Can I bring that to the teacher? Can I bring that to my husband? So that's what I'm mulling over. So I want to say hello to Sahlah Dubel. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, Catherine. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you just fine. Thank you so much. So Sahlah is a co-founder of Divine by Design, a corporation dedicated to supporting community resilience and holistic wellness. As a generational dreamer, dream integration was essential to her family's paradigm for emotional wellness. Her spiritual journey includes immersive meditation practices, strategies for detoxification, and a profound understanding of the healing qualities of movement, song, prayer, and nature. She's facilitated dreaming workshops, providing techniques to navigate dreams and embrace lucid living. She's a member of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, is enrolled in IASD's Dreams Ethnicity Study Group, and will join the Institute of Dream Studies this fall. And the website Sahlah Dubel co-hosts with her brother Andrew Lawson is called divinebydesign.com. So Sahlah Dubel, so glad to have you on the show again. You've been on a couple of times now.
Yeah, I was on once in April, and then my brother came after, I think.
Okay, yes, it's been great. And then, of course, I met you in person at the IASD conference in Tucson. That was such a treat to meet you in person.
Yes, that was beautiful. That was an absolutely beautiful experience, and a dreaming ball, and getting to put a physical space to your emotional, energetic was great. I loved mashing that up and seeing you in person as well.
Absolutely. It was so fun. I mean, it's been 3 years since we had an in-person conference, and just to see everybody there, we had a little bit of a hybrid component. And so Sahlah, you grew up in Baltimore, and with a family that did talk about dreams. And I know dreaming is important to you from your family, and folks can listen to the April show to get a lot more detail about your background. But of course, that was with Andrusa. And so now you're here with Sahlah and Catherine having a conversation. What do you want to say about dreams, you and dreams, and how you got interested in dreams, and how your past has influenced your work with dreams? It just seems like there's so much there to talk about.
Yeah, thank you so much, Catherine. I guess similar to most humans on the planet, right? Dreaming has been, always been a part of my life. But what was different, and why I say I come from a generational family of dreamers, is because the experiences of what we dreamed and how we then spoke about and navigated and dealt with what we dreamed in our waking time was just a part of how my family moved. Through the dreams that I've been having from a really young age, my dreams really took off after I actually started my menses. I don't want to get into technical for some of our callers,
sure,
but really taking that step into womanhood was really blew the lid off the gasket, as it were. And I was at a very young age when that happened. And so moving through my dreaming experiences and just embracing and being able to have that familial community absolutely woke up my dream life. And so a lot of it's really more like the journey into dream work. Because dreaming has always been a part of my family paradigm. What's changed and what shifted, and it came around the time of the pandemic, is the openness with speaking about dreaming experiences outside of family members.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that. What's that been like for you?
Yeah. For all of the negativity and the struggles that the pandemic brought to us, it also brought a lot of common space. Our boogeyman had the same name across the board.
Your what?
Our boogeyman had the same name. COVID, right? It was the same. It was the same experience that that people were having, and so because we couldn't come together physically,
right?
What I encountered over and over again were people being more ready to be transparent about some of those vulnerable spaces and some of the things that they were struggling with spiritually and emotionally. And dreaming was a huge factor that shifted for a lot of people during the pandemic. And sometimes it didn't shift so much as the willingness to speak about it shifted. And that's really where the call to really, that's when we founded Divine by Design. That was really kind of the spark that ignited things. So we took it from a practice that we had, we grew up with and we shared amongst our family and friends and maybe, the one-off times when people would hear from someone who heard from someone that we're exceptional dreamers. And then we, would find ourselves, consulting and giving pointers about our experiences and our practices.
I tell you, word of mouth is the best thing. I mean,
oh yeah, and it really exploded, during the pandemic. So that's really, in a nutshell, the journey that we're on.
So I understand that you're now a part of the Dreams and Ethnicity program with IASD.
Yes.
And I'm excited about that, and we're gonna have another conference next June. I'd love to have you consider presenting. That would be awesome. But I also want to, let's talk. I'm excited to talk about some of that. But I also want to get right to our main topic. Like, what about the spaces, death, and the spaces between? Like, say a little more about that. What is that for you, and what's been your experience?
Yes, so I'm going to interweave this with the work that I'm taking, the journey I'm taking within dream work and with dreaming practices, and then what I'm integrating with and working with personally. So just on a personal note, just to put it out there, my mother recently transitioned. She passed away on July 12th.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to share, so backing up into this, lucid dreaming and lucid living are terms that I am hearing everywhere in the dreaming community. I know that there is right now, lucid dreaming is a hot topic. It's sexy.
Absolutely.
People want to know if you wake up when you dream and do you stay asleep after you realize that you're dreaming and how do you how do you then integrate, and what can you then heal? Like in the midst of a lucid dream, people are chasing lucid dreaming right now. It's a very hot topic. But I don't, as I'm studying and I'm speaking with more people in the field, I'm almost cautious against this association that's also happening, where there's almost this assumption sometimes that lucid dreaming is a requirement for lucid living, and it's not.
Oh.
I mean, I haven't found it to be. The two terms have, lucidity tied into it. Lucid dreaming can absolutely bolster your experience of lucid living. But when I and my family have navigated through lucid living, what we talk about when we thinking of dream work is not just how your lucid dreams are allowing you to live a more lucid life. Mm-hmm. Lucid dreams are a part of that. Lucid living is more of intentionally choosing to pay attention to and engage with your dreaming spaces. And, if you think about it, nightmares, ancestral dreams, very vivid dreams, right? Mm-hmm. Those aren't technically lucid dreams, right? Mm-hmm. We don't always wake in the middle of nightmares and know that it's a nightmare.
And no,
but the effect,
yeah, it might be better if we could.
Right, but the effect of a nightmare can stay with us for weeks, days, months after, that's ended. And so really, it's this idea that the healing that we can get from engaging with dream time, dream space, with the dreaming in our dreams, isn't necessarily just measured with how many lucid dreams we have, whether we're increasing or decreasing our lucidity, if and what that relationship looks like all the time, although it can be a very, very important element of it. Mm. It's more so this, and I call it the spaces between. It's the time between dreaming. It's maybe the time when you wake up, if you're having a series of dreams in one night. Yeah. And some of the practices that you can employ when you're awake that will help you with integrating what you experience in your dreams so that you can live a more lucid and full life. That doesn't necessarily require that I increase my experiences of lucid dreaming tenfold, right?
And I just want to ask you that this is the Dream Journal, and my guest is Sahlah Dubel, and I am very interested in some of the practices that you recommend to bring the lucid dreaming experiences, or any dreaming experiences. What do you recommend to bring those experiences into life to start to engage more in this lucid living practice?
Yeah, thank you for that, Catherine. So, and this is where I'm gonna weave this into the journey that I've been on with my mother's passing, and this is where death kind of becomes a part of that. So, and I'm just gonna give the example of the journey that I'm currently on, and then stop me when we need to stop.
Of course, no worries. That's my job. I'll do that. No,
So, way back in early March of this year, I started noticing a shift in my dream. I typically have very good recall. I typically have very vivid dreams. I have a high number of lucid dreams. All that aside, I noticed that there was a theme that was repeating itself, and that theme was death. It was playing out in different scenarios. It wasn't just one dream on repeat. It was this pervasive, at the end of whatever plot line is running itself out, the end of that is death. Oh, wow. is what was making itself known. And as I was journaling about that and noticing it, and this was in early March, how I interpreted that when I would wake from the dreams was, okay, this is it. Something's wrong with me. I'm sick. This is.
So in some of those dreams, were you the one that was dying, or were the other people in the dreams?
Yeah, it was. Sometimes it was me. Sometimes it was me witnessing death. Sometimes it was me taking on the form of one of the characters or one of the people within my dream, and experiencing death through their perspective. But always at the end of it was one thing I was sure of, was that this was the end of whatever it was I was moving through. And I remember that as I would journal about these dreams, I would wake and write about it.
You say you would wake up and write about the dreams that you had. Yes,
Yeah, but more importantly, and this is, I guess, I can start this with one of the techniques. One of the things that I do when I wake up from dreams, especially a visceral one, whether it's a lucid dream, whether it's a nightmare, if it's a dream that's really kind of got me in its embrace, is the first thing I do is sit. I either stay laying where I am, or I sit on the side of the bed, and I focus on, I call it, my family called it giving your spirit time to catch up with your body. There was a belief in my family that when you dream, your spirit goes elsewhere. So when you wake, try not to jar yourself awake. Try to give your spirit time to catch up with your body. And so really sitting in the emotion of what it is I've just dreamed, and not so much getting caught up in the details. I think that sometimes we tend to get caught up in the narrative of the dreams that we've just left. I'm very, very good and comfortable with sitting in the emotions that are elicited from the dreaming space. And so sometimes it would just be allowing myself to feel scared, or to feel the unease of it, to just embrace what it was that needed to come up and express itself. And so that space that I would create, that space in between, would sometimes happen, most of the time, it happen in the middle of the night. Sometimes when I would wake in the morning from dreams, but more often the sweet spots are like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., literally in the middle of the night. And what I began to do was to physically sometimes get up, and I sleep with my husband, and sometimes get up and to allow him room to physically, change where I was, to move to another room. And then if I needed to, sit in moonlight, sit and rock slightly, if I needed to hum, if I needed to cry, if I needed to laugh, to allow that energy to work its way out of my body, to bring it from the dreaming space into expressing it in the real time, would allow the next step to kind of manifest. And what has happened for me, and what happens for me, and I'm not, it's been such a very rich gift, has been the conversations that I have inside my head with either myself, with spirit, with the dreaming, whichever your practice is, however, whatever resonates with the consciousness that you want to call it, is full-fledged conversations that that I'm able to move through in my head. And so I would sit there the first couple times I went through this in early March, knowing that there's just something wrong with me. This is it. I have to get my last will and testament in place. This is going to happen. And for me, I call spirit. What spirit, would bring forth in my head is stop assuming that you know what this is about or what this looks like. Trust that we've got you on this journey, and just allow yourself to sit in what you're feeling.
And trust and allow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm a hardhead. I'm a Leo. I got my things in mind. And for a solid 2-week cycle or so, it's, constantly, there was not any letting up. And I was like, okay, I really need to focus on integration. The next time spirit shows up, I'm really going to make space and have myself be open to the idea of integrating, no matter how scary it might look, to open up to what it is, spirit that you might want to speak to me about. And so sure enough, the time for my menses came, and I'm trying not to weird out too many people.
No, thank you for being thank you for just like bringing it here into the room, because that's what the facts of life of being a woman and a part of the human, to be part of that flow. And it's funny. It's exactly that, Catherine. It's the reason I mention that is because as I paid attention, remember I said that my dreaming, really, the gasket blew off the first time I moved into my menses as a young woman. For me, a time in which my lucidity increases, my recall increases, the vividness of my dreams increase almost without fail, is during what I call my moon time, when I'm on my cycle. And I've been able to pay attention to that. I've been able to anticipate. I'm not surprised anymore when those moments come up. I
know that I should maybe lend more of an ear to what I dream during those times, because my connection with energies, with elements, with nature is a lot more. It's a lot stronger. It's a lot more visceral. And so my moon time comes around, and I wake from a dream, and it wasn't the dream that set me off. It was sitting on the edge of the bed and allowing myself to feel and to understand, because I sat on the edge of the bed. I felt my whole body shaking. Spirit turns on in my head and says, "Get up, let your husband sleep." Was the first thing. Right? I'm like, okay, right? Because I'm like, all right, and that's, so
thanks for that warning.
I physically get up. I go to, a new room.
You go into another room. Was that?
Another room.
Oh,
yes.
yes. Okay.
And I sit in the moonlight, and I just kind of gently rock. And Spirit says, just say it. Say what it is you're afraid to say. And what came up, and I didn't know what was going to come up. I was like, just let it happen. Just let whatever is inside of me that I feel boiling up through, the bottom of my belly, through my chest, and about to come out my mouth, give it breath, give it life. And what came out of my mouth was, "Mom is dying."
Oh, wow. And
you
didn't know in waking life? You didn't have...
She had not been diagnosed.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow.
She died from pancreatic cancer. She had not been diagnosed.
Oh, wow.
I know that, she had been complaining of stomach aches and ailments. But, my mother was also in her 60s. And so it was something that she wrote off. She was always following up with her doctor. She was a very
so
healthy
young.
woman.
I feel like...
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it was, and the thought came out, and I began to move through mourning. I don't even know what the time passing was, but I allowed myself to cry in that moment, as if I had just received the news that she had passed. And at the end of it, and it's not even really the end of it, but the end of that section of it, Spirit turns on in my head again and has a full-fledged conversation with me about why it's important that I allow myself to go into that space, and why it's important that I prepare myself for my mother's passing without any type of, and she will receive her diagnosis at the end of the month, which she did. Wow.
Wow.
Like there was no type of preemptive, and these are the technical ways that this will show up in your waking time. It was more so about, this is why you need to embrace your voice and understand that the reason this is happening is not just because it's a part of life, it's a part of the cycle. It's because your mother as matriarch understands that as a woman, and along with the rest of her children, that you have all stepped into your rights as kings and queens in your own right, as fully embodied, manifestations of her dream and her work. She will be okay with her work being done as long as you continue to be the most authentic version of yourself.
Wow! So you can honor her by living that authentic calling. Yeah. So you found out about this just sounds like this spring, and so she had, after the diagnosis, she was only around for a few months. It sounds like.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Oh. And you saw it coming in the dream. And so how did the dreams guide you from there? Like what was your journey like at that point after recognizing and seeing the diagnosis, and then there was the fairly sudden journey to her passing?
Yeah, so it was more so the integration, and that's why I talk about the spaces between. It was, so this was I had this discussion with Spirit. I embraced the idea of that was the scary place that I didn't want myself to go to in the dreams. That was the thought that I would not allow myself to have in my waking hours, that was presenting itself while I was asleep. And what it did was that for one, it allowed me to change the way that I engaged with her. in a way that, was more so, Mom, tell me more of your stories, give me more of, as much of your spirit and your energy and your life that I can keep with me. But even more so, it had me thinking about all of those places that I'm afraid to go, subconsciously and in the dreaming and when I'm not awake, and the importance of needing to create space to engage with the ideas, to allow myself to think the thoughts, to allow us all to think the thoughts that might scare us, so that we can engage with them. As long as it's something that we continue to shy away from or move away from, or in my case, I already know what the interpretation of this is. This is about me. This is about my own health. This is about my journey. As long as we, continue to do that, what happens, especially for those of us who are dreaming through this, is that dreaming just gets more insistent. Sometimes it gets a little bit darker. It's us not navigating the things in the spaces that we're afraid of. And it's really being able to create space and time for the integration. That's really that's been really important. Journaling is great.
Oh yeah,
it's an absolute great practice. But one of the ways, and I can give another example.
Yeah,
that how I journal is that I oftentimes start my journaling with either where I am emotionally, maybe if I've just read a book that I can't get out of my mind, or if what the experience is when I first wake up, maybe some of the thoughts or the emotions that came to me when I just came from a dream space. I actually, if there's time, if it's okay, I have an excerpt for something that I wrote recently that I can read and share.
Oh yeah, that's great. Let's do it right after the break. So that'll be perfect, because I'm just looking for a smooth segue. How is this for a smooth segue? And so I thank you so much to Sahlah Dubel, and I'm loving this journey. It's so tender and powerful. Sahlah's webpage is Divine by Design, and what you're listening to right now is the Dream Journal. In fact, you may have realized by now that this show is a replay. This conversation dates from August of last summer. Death and life. What more beautiful subjects are those, and what more evergreen? I hope you are enjoying the show. I know that I got even more out of listening to it the second time around than the first. And please do stay tuned, because I will be back at the end of the show to let you know what Sahlah and the Divine by Design team are up to now. I also want to let you know that I will be back in the studio next week with a live show featuring Dr. Leslie Ellis, who will be talking about nightmares and the nervous system, plus experiential versus analytical approaches to dream exploration. One of the things I've always loved about Dr. Ellis's approach to dream work is that she has a passion for showing folks how easy it is to work with their dreams and with the dreams of their clients. All right, this is the Dream Journal. My name is Catherine Bell. My guest today is Sahlah Dubel of divinebydesign.org. We're talking about dreams and lucid living, and Sahlah is sharing with us some of the ways that dreams have guided her both while she's sleeping and how she works with them when she's awake during the recent passage of her mother. And you were about to read something for us. Sahlah, you sound great, and I'm so glad to have you on the air with this really fabulous journey.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read, and what I tend to do sometimes in my dream journal, I know that sometimes people separate their dream journals from their formal journals, but I like to interweave the two to if something is a dream, to label it as such. But I'm just going to read the portion before I started writing about the dream that I had recently. So, moontime dreaming, full moon season, yet still difficult to remember every detail. I woke with a feeling at first, as if I had just seen a long lost friend, and been greeted as if not a day had passed. I took a few moments to let my spirit come back up into my body, and took note of my awful morning breath and my son's tiny foot a mere 2 inches from my face. As I readjusted and he rolled over to cuddle me with a morning hug, I allowed myself to smile and enjoy the pleasantness. When I did sit up, I noticed that the morning sun was high, and as it hit the purple sequenced heart on my pajama top, the light refracted onto the bedroom wall in 1,000 purplish and pinkish tones. Every time my chest rose, every breath that I moved, so too did the light dancing on the walls. And I smiled, because I'm all heart, and pink was my mother's favorite color, and purple is mine. And then the details of my dream came rushing back in an effortless flow, and I smiled. And then after that, I have a detail of the dream. So that's how I write. That's how I my dream journal is structured, is to have those moments sometimes of waking, and that integration that happens before the cataloging of the dream. When I woke that morning, I was having a bit of difficulty remembering all of the pieces and the details, but I allowed myself to sit in that, and just that. Really, it's the way you feel when you, like, Starbucks has perfected the coffee they just handed to you, and the smell of it wakes up everything inside of you, and you just grin a little bit, and you're like, okay, let's do this morning. That was the feeling that I woke with. Yet the details of the space, the dream space that I had just disengaged with, weren't really solidified for me. But taking those moments to just, instead of, I really have to recall and think about what it was, where was I just, what color was that room I was in, and who did I engage with, and what happened where, and what were the pieces. And it was really, for me, the practice of allowing things to catch up, allowing myself to settle back into the space, to disengage with the dream space, but with that understanding that it's something that I'll be integrating through the time of my day, through the small moments of my day, and just having that space rushed back everything, all of the details and all of the, the pieces and the moments that I had just dreamed. And there wasn't coffee anywhere. Well, there was a little bit of coffee in that dream, it was real. It's really those moments that an integration. There's
I'm sorry, what's that, integration?
Yes. What came to mind just now, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What came to mind just now, within the IASD's Dreams and Ethnicity Working Group, one of the lecturers, Eduardo Durant, he does a lot of work with First Nations people and PTSD. And in listening to his lecture, he mentioned this idea, this belief that the dreaming dreams you, that the dream space can actually be engaged as a sentient entity, that it's almost like that great void, that vast void of knowing and consciousness for a moment becomes corporeal and engages with you in the form of a dream.
Oh wow!
And
love that.
But as he spoke, I was like, okay, so he is describing what how I was raised to think of dreaming. It's referring to it as almost the dreaming, right, with a capital T and a capital D, as if it were something sentient. Some people call it spirit. Some people call it conversing with their angels. It's that idea that it takes us making the decision, right, to engage on a conscious level. And sometimes things play themselves out for us in our dreams, but a lot of times, it's how we choose to engage with, what we encounter in our sleeping times during our waking hours. And that's real lucid living. That's really, having the shift in our focus to be open to engaging with that during our waking hours, which is where the real healing can can manifest.
You know, it's interesting because at the conference in Tucson, that I went to several of the lucid dreaming talks, and there's this idea that if you become lucid in a dream, that you can choose to address the consciousness behind the dream, and say, what do I need to know here, or like get some help or some healing. And I just had this idea of what if we could do that with our waking consciousness too? It's like to address the consciousness behind the waking life.
Yeah.
What do
absolutely. Absolutely. That's something, in fact, so, I was speaking to someone at the conference. It was just one of those conversations that not a water cooler. There was a lot of coffee though. It was a conversation around the coffee, right?
Yes,
I was speaking about things I had to do, and I said, okay, we need to do this and that, and then we need to do that. And then the person I was speaking to smiled, and he said, oh, you're a really well integrated person. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, the fact that you're referring to yourself as we. There are some researchers that believe that you're actually talking in terms of your id, your ego, and your super. That you're understanding that you yourself have several different, versions of you that end. Right. And I hadn't really thought about that. I said, I have to be about I more often. And he said, no, that's the fact that you're moving through space as a we is that idea that I'm not ever really separated from other and from that vast consciousness, and that knowing is absolutely something that I move through.
Well, that really, ties in your whole thing of divine by design. Like, it's like, are we having the divine with us at every moment? And is that something that we can welcome in the we of life?
Yeah. No, it's something absolute. It takes balance, right? Because you don't want it's kind of that space between the moment that I'm very upset that I don't remember where this quote is from, but it's the moment that you believe that there's nothing more to learn and that there's nothing more that you need to study. All attempts to understand something have failed. Like we are constantly on a journey to becoming, right? And so when you move into this space where it's like, well, I've taken care of everything there is to know about that subject, and I'm an expert there.
Right.
Now I can move on to the next hill to come through. It's like, that's a very westernized view.
Oh my goodness!
Not really the only view.
I just have to say that one of my pet peeves about dreaming is that when I hear somebody say, "Oh, now I know what my dream means." I'm like, no, don't close the door. Yeah. There's so much more. Like, that's just the beginning.
No.
Yes, thank you. I love that. It's like that really closes the door on more. And it is probably very Western. And Sahlah, I just love this thing about the we. And I was going to say something else, but that's what came out because it's true. It's something like the dream that I shared at the top of the hour about the dance teacher, flirting with the dance teacher. Like, there's some way that this is kind of an angel for me that is like waking up this kind of girlish self, and I like close the door. I was like, oh no, I'm married now. I can't be that anymore. But then there's like, could there be an invitation for me to open the door and bring that energy to my marriage? Why not? I mean, how lovely.
Yeah, Catherine, I struggle too and it's not really a struggle. It's so I was raised Islamically, and that is something that to this day, that's its own, two-headed dragon that I move through, because I do not fit with the Orthodox interpretation of Islam, and yet I still identify as being a Muslim, and the way in which I move through Islam is more so aligned with a mysticism that just isn't very much, mainstream. But suffice it to say, I was, raised around that idea that, when you get married, here's the 10 Commandments, and very Judeo-Christian, ideas around, sexuality and such. And so I have dreamscapes where I'm tangling with sexuality and my own, comfort, and how I feel myself to be desired or desirable. And it's interesting because I was talking to my brother, I was talking to Andrewsa We are that close when it comes to dreams.
Oh,
We're
yes,
just,
yep.
I'm having conversations with him, and he threw something out there as you were talking about the dream that you had, and it totally blew me away when he said it. I was like, look, I just can't engage with this person in the dream state because I'm married, and it's not a person that
I can't
I'm married
because of why? Oh, because I'm married.
Because I'm married, and
yes, yes.
And it wasn't it wasn't even a person that I know. It was a movie star. But even in the dreamscape, I was like, absolutely not. Like, I have a wedding ring.
Right.
We're not even going to talk about this.
Totally.
And so my brother kind of smiled and he said, is it possible that that movie star is how the dreaming is presenting elements that you love in your husband?
Ooh.
And I was like, what?
Oh, Sahlah, you're giving me ideas too. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. It's the minute, you kind of slam the door when it can't possibly be that, it's got to be this other thing. I mean, it's just being open to all the possibilities.
Right. There's a different kind of morality in dreams. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Is there morality in dreams?
Yeah. Is there? That's a good question. Well, they have their own, I was going to say logic, but I don't think that's quite the right word. Their own sense and their own flow. There's that flow again. So this is so we have about 10, 12 minutes left. And I wonder if you want to say some more about your journey with your mom. I mean, some more or about other things. Like it seems like there's just many different directions we could go. And I will also add in, this is K-Squid 90.7 FM, streaming live at ksqd.org. And this is the Dream Journal. My guest is Sahlah Dubel, and her website's Divine by Design. And so what is coming up for you now, Sahlah? What would you like to take? Where would you like to take the conversation?
Yeah, so I was actually going to, I can share another example of where I was having, in my waking time, I was having a lot of struggles. And it took me being open to inviting a potential pathway forward to just, okay, let me back up a second.
Okay.
I'll give a story. My brother is getting me comfortable with being a storyteller. So this story starts with me having a difficult summer financially. I was kind of in a mix and in a struggle, but one of the other things that was happening for me was I was in this space where I was thinking, I can rev up my work hours, but every time I had that thought, I could feel like the aches in my back or just how tired my body was. And I'm like, I don't want to have to work more and, lean more into this paradigm. And so I was really hitting a wall. And the place where we lived in Maryland, and the home that we lived in was one that had been the home of my husband's parents. The land that we lived on had been land that in one way or another, my husband's family had owned that land for up to 7 generations, I think. So in thinking about what could be a next step for us, it never, ever, ever came into my mind the idea that maybe I should move. Maybe I should put my house on the market. Never, no. That wasn't even, no. I will live and die in this home. This home has too much history, whatever. But I found myself hitting a wall. And what I did was I turned to spirit, I turned to prayer, I turned to meditation. And within my journaling, within my intentions, set forth the idea that I don't know what the answer looks like. I know that the universe has it. I know that my creator has the answer. I don't know what it looks like. Can you give me a piece of what it might look like so I can understand what the next steps are? And I remember going to sleep that night, Catherine. Yeah. And the dream I had, I'm going to go right to because it's hilarious. And I guess I just wasn't paying attention to the other pieces of advice Spirit had been dropping for me. But in the dream, I'm in the house and there's this knock on the door, like a really powerful knock, shakes the entire house. Wow. I go to the door, open it up. No one is standing there is Iyanla Van Zandt. Yes. From Iyanla Fix My Life. And I loved her show. I was a fan. And in the dream, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you're here, Yanla. We need you. We really need you to help us like figure out what's going on because, I don't know who it is that we need to engage to make things better. And Yanla stands right in my doorway and just as as plain as you please goes, child, what are you doing in this house? And I was like, excuse me? It's like, what are you doing in this house? What are you doing in this neighborhood? This house is bigger than the space you need. You don't need all this space in this house. Who are you trying to impress? And I had a moment where I said, no. You're not here to fix me. And Young is like, I absolutely am here.
Yeah, whose dream is this
and
anyway?
And she literally takes me by the arm, walks me around, and she says, this is a beautiful space, plenty of room, tons of sun and land. We had several acres. You don't need all this. You don't need to keep up. It's too much. And it's taken too much for you to keep up with this space and with the cost of living. And who are you impressing? And I dropped to my knees in the dream. I'm crying. I'm like, Yanla, this land is important to my husband. It's important. This is a place where we need to. And Yanla grabs me by the shoulders, and she said, what his family and his people think is most important is right there. And she pointed to my son who was playing in the yard.
Oh, wow. Yep.
And I woke from that. I woke from that space. I sat up and I felt like I couldn't stop shivering. My whole body was shaking. And I felt it was almost as if I had swallowed butterflies or birds and that they had to get out. I felt it rising from right above, my butt and my lower gut and up through my body. And what came out of my mouth was a song.
A song, huh?
A song.
Ooh.
I started singing.
Yes. And
it wasn't a song. It wasn't anybody else's song. I used to write poetry. When I was very young, as a teenager, I was very interested in slam poetry and open mic nights. But I hadn't done it in years. And literally sitting on the edge of the bed, I started singing. And the song and the tone of it was almost one that was escaping to freedom. I can just give you one of the, I can't sing. I don't have it. Let me say, I have no singing voice. I'm not trying to get for any record labels. I'm just going to do a broad disclaimer here.
Please. You are perfect just the way you are.
completely like for personal healing. But
absolutely.
The first line of the song was you got to go, child. You got to run. You got to go, child. And you take your son. Ooh. And every verse of it was about this ominous. It was like, get your family, grab each one of their hands and head out, go away. Like this is not.
You got to go now.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yes. Ooh.
And that is how I integrate and live loosely. It was after a lot, and I sat in that, I cried for a bit. There were like 12 verses. It just poured out. There wasn't anyone else in the room, when I went through the singing of it. But then, I found my husband and I said, okay, we're putting the house in order. And it was, without any hesitation. And during the process of it, there were times, because it's not an easy process. Of course, it's not it's its own gauntlet. But there wasn't any other doubt in me that I needed to lean away from.
There wasn't any what? Sorry, it faded for a second.
I'm sorry. It was a surety in me that was the path that I needed to take. That I didn't quite understand. I had never put property on the market before. I was new to the entire experience. It was not in any way, shape, or form not stressful. It was a lot. It was intense. Wow. But it was the right move.
Right.
It was the right move for me. And it was something that had not come into the realm of possible solutions to what I was dealing with during my waking time. But what I did was offer up to the dreaming space, to spirit, that I'm ready to hear what else you can put on the table.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like
Yep.
you must understand that there's more options here than what I'm seeing. I can't see everything, or maybe a part of me can. Can you help me, wrap my mind around that? And truly enough, had I opened that door, I could have opened that door, and it could have been my mom, and I probably wouldn't have listened.
Right. It's the dream knows exactly who is the
Exactly.
one. So Sahlah, this is really, you've got to go now. I'm just going to be in my head now. Oh, I love this. So Sahlah Dubel, this has just been an amazing conversation. And I know that you're starting at the Institute for Dream Studies in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you leave, you'll be running them, I'm sure. They don't even know what they've got coming. And I am such a treasure to talk to you again. And we'll get you on the show another time. So do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners, Sahlah?
Just to not be afraid to pay attention to the spaces in between, and sometimes those spaces can be silence.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's said to take the space that you need for self-care, sometimes it can just be bits and pieces. Don't be afraid if you need to move to a space by yourself and laugh your laughs and cry your cries without letting your head get too much into the whys behind it. Sometimes the gift of being human is just allowing yourself to express what needs to be expressed in the universe, give it sound, give it life, get it out, and then grow from that.
Oh, that's so perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sahlah Dubel. And let's definitely be in touch. I know that we will.
Absolutely, Catherine. Thank you so much for this.
Okay.
It's been beautiful as
right.
always.
Have a fabulous day.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye now. So that was a conversation I had with Sahlah August of last year. I told her I was going to rebroadcast her show and wrote to her for updates, and she wrote back that Divine by Design has been centering their efforts on promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion by shining a light on BIPOC dream culture and dream workers. In December 2022, they were awarded the IASD DEI grant, this is a diversity grant, in support of the upcoming project entitled Trauma and BIPOC Dream Culture. They're also partnering with the Institute for Dream Studies to design a course curriculum which highlights the experience of BIPOC dream culture in the U.S. See, I knew they would be getting in deep with IDS. Divine by Design also launched a new podcast series called Not Sure How to Fix This, which you can find on Spotify. In spring, they were honored to host a 3-part BIPOC dream group entitled A BIPOC Beltane. And this season, Divine by Design is focused on the IASD 40th Annual Conference in Ashland, Oregon, where Vice President and Creative Director Andrusa Wolf Lawson will be both a featured artist in the DreamWork Gallery and a presenter for the Dreams and Ethnicity track. To prepare for the conference, Divine by Design hosted a crowdfunding campaign through the iFund Women of Color platform, raising over $6,600 to enable Wolf and several BIPOC dreamworkers to attend the conference in person. All in all, a productive and expansive year for the Divine by Design team. I can't wait to hear what you've got coming next. I am Catherine Bell. This has been the Dream Journal. Thanks for listening. You can find out about my own dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. You can email me at catherine@ksqd.org. That's KATHERINE@ksqd.org. Please contact me so we can talk about dreams and so I can put you on my email list. Thank you to folks who've been leaving reviews on Apple Podcasts. I'd love to get a few more out there. And thank you to Rick Cleffel for this new music today. You can find out all this ambient music at pandemiad.com. Rick is also engineer for the show, so thank you for that. I'd like to thank Tony Rissimano for answering the phones, Eva Milady for audio editing. The intro music is Water Over Stones, and the outro music is called Everything, both by Mood Science. Thank you to the fabulous donors who support this station. K-Squid is entirely listener-supported, and we always welcome donations at ksqd.org. And when you do donate, be sure to tell them you are a Dream Journal listener. So join me again next Saturday at 10 a.m. And when you wake up in the morning, write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal. I am Catherine Bell, and you are listening to KSQD Santa Cruz.
There's a time.